Did you just get sued? Did a federal agent show up at your door with a subpoena? Are you about to buy a piece of property and you don't know what to do next? By the end of this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to pick the lawyer that is perfect for your issue. I'm going to share with you some of the lessons that I learned from being in-house counsel at a real estate company where we advised management on a lot of real estate and a lot of operations that had to do with that real estate. I've seen cases progress from start to finish. I've seen transactions progress from start to finish. And so hopefully it's helpful to you to hear some of the lessons that I took away from that experience. Probably the most important thing that you can do, and this is what I share with my friends and family whenever they ask about how to start with this process, is take advantage of the initial consultation. So the first thing you're going to do is cast a wide net to, amass a few attorneys who you're going to interview. And the way to do this is search on Google or ask around, get referrals from people who have been through similar issues. So you want to be specific, like tax attorney or California tax attorney or Florida personal injury attorney. Maybe it's a Texas real estate attorney. So make sure you have that jurisdiction as well as the specific type of law. When you go to the attorney's website, click on the practice areas link. It'll show you a list of what that lawyer or that law firm specializes in. And ideally, you're gonna find a lawyer who, all they do is exactly what you need for them to do. My very favorite lawyers are the ones who were able to recite code from their practice area, where if you call them about a workers' compensation issue, they're specifically citing code section, this and that. I mean, that is what you want. If they're listing 100 different types of law, maybe it's just a huge law firm, but that's gonna weigh in on your decision-making because they have 30 departments in one law firm, which is not a bad thing, depending on how much business you have and what all is going on. Maybe you want a one-stop shop. My preference was always to find a smaller specialty firm or maybe a solo or a lawyer who's practicing by themselves, or maybe they have a small group of people around them and they do the same types of cases day after day after day. And so when you go to the courthouse with them, they're literally in the hallways waving at judges and other attorneys because they know everyone who's in the industry. And that really helps you in the long run because it is so helpful to know this arbitrator has these preferences, or this judge likes for you to behave this way in the courtroom. If the lawyer has that, they kind of have a leg up on someone who is just coming in fresh and doesn't have that type of experience in that area. We often got good results by finding someone who went to a top law school, trained at a top firm, and then later started their own practice. And often you get a lower price point, but for sure, you're getting more access to expertise, which is really what you want. Once you have a few lawyers you want to look into a little bit further, do a small background check on them and just type them into Google, see what comes up. And I don't necessarily mean star reviews or anything like that, great marketing. I mean, go to the state bar website because every state has a bar organization, and that's where there will be some basic information about the lawyer, like whether or not they've ever had any sanctions or discipline, or how long they've been practicing, where they went to school, where their office is, things like that. If you see anything like that, it may not necessarily be a red flag. It can just be something you can follow up with them and ask them about later. Often there's an explanation, but it's good to know that going in. If you see a lawyer who has a long list of discipline and they're suspended from practice, you probably don't want to choose them. Remember that lawyers can be licensed in multiple different states. So if you know this lawyer came from somewhere else, it might not completely show up on one website. For instance, I practiced in California for a number of years before I moved to Texas and started practicing here. And so on the Texas bar website, my experience looks very short, but in reality, it was longer in California. So now when you go in for the initial consultation, you want to be ready. You can do it on the phone or you can do it in person. Ideally, you're doing this in person, depends on how much time you have, how quickly you need to move, what that lawyer's availability is, but really you just want to be prepared. So make sure that they have whatever documents you want for them to review well in advance of the call so that they have a chance to look at it and that you have it right in front of you during your initial consultation. And then also you want to have a list of questions that you're going to ask them that I'm about to tell you. This is not the time to go in and talk about how much you know about the law or how smart you are or how you didn't deserve to get sued. I mean, lawyers hear stories all day long because just like you're interviewing them to pick them for the job, they're also interviewing clients to see who's a good fit for them and who they can help. So you want to be sure to respect each other's time because usually these initial consultations are free. So you're getting 15 minutes for free from a lawyer who's charging like hundreds or thousands of dollars an hour for their time. So make the best of it because you might even be able to get some insights from that initial conversation. So one of the things you want to ask during the initial consultation is what's the typical result of the type of case that you're bringing to the lawyer. For instance, if it is a construction litigation case, you want to ask them, what's the typical result here? What can we expect to see? What's going to be the involvement of the insurance companies? What's going to be the involvement of these multiple parties? Is there a chance to join other people involved? And then what's the usual result that comes out of this type of litigation? In your experience, what you've seen. And they're not gonna let you pin them down. So basically just try and get the bookends, like what's the best result you've ever seen? What's the worst result you've ever seen? How does it usually end up? Where can we expect to end up? And maybe you're not gonna get like a black and white answer, but you are gonna get a little bit more insight that'll help you make your decision. Notice if they're on time to your first meeting with them and your second meeting with them. If they're late to your meeting, maybe they will be late sending you a bill, or even worse, like a court filing deadline or something like that. Or maybe it doesn't even matter because it's going to be a completely different lawyer who's working with you, and they're just the intake person who's building that relationship and kind of managing the case from a high level. And ultimately, you're going to be working with a different attorney who's in the firm or a paralegal, depending on how people bill and everything else, which is fine. It's just a good question to ask. So you want to ask them what is going to happen after this initial consultation. What's the communication going to be? Is it just going to be an email update every time something major happens? Or are you going to be getting a monthly, update, like a status report every single month? Make sure to ask how you will be charged and what you will be paying, and if it's a flat rate or an hourly fee. So for, tax appeal litigation, you might be paying a flat fee, or for preparation of a settlement agreement, it might be a flat fee. But then there are other types of work like a contract review or litigation where you're going to be putting down a retainer and they will bill hourly against that. So then you want to know how much is the retainer, how much is the hourly rate, and then what happens at the end if we don't spend that money. Are you going to give it back to me? What are the odds that we're going to go above that amount? That kind of thing. And you want to know whose hourly rate is getting billed. So every level of attorney is going to have a different hourly rate. So whether you're on the phone with the partner or the associate or the paralegal or the legal secretary or the legal assistant, everyone has their different rate. You don't want to get charged the same amount for the person who's putting together the file as you do the person who's going to be in trial arguing your case, or the person who's going to be negotiating face-to-face with the top person at the other company if it's a contract negotiation. With attorneys, like anything else, you get what you pay for, so you might want to keep in mind, don't just pick based on someone's hourly rate. I mean, you might be like, oh my God, this person's hourly rate is $200 an hour, score. And then it turns out they graduated yesterday and they're just like using your case to get some experience, and you might be okay with that. You might be okay with your niece performing, your legal work for you. You might be fine with that. It's just good to know and a good question to ask. How does this compare to the rest of the market? And am I getting the value for what I'm paying? So these are just some of the things that I kept in mind. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any other questions or any other thoughts, just leave a comment down below and I will make sure to answer and respond to that the best that I can. Good luck.
Getting to the money. Everybody